Gojo vs Sukuna is one of the best, most anticipated, and discussed fights in Shonen, modern or otherwise. Now before all of you come for me and bring up, I don't know, Goku versus Vegeta, or Goku versus Frieza, or Gohan versus Cell, or Holy, Toriyama ran this shit by the way. What I need you guys to understand is that Gojo vs Sukuna was big. This manga fight had people from all over the world fiending week to week. Gojo gets his neck sliced, suddenly everyone's a doctor. Sukuna summons Maharaga, he's a clown now. Gojo dies, Kenjiro Hata takes a week off to process it. No, seriously, that is something that actually happened. Whether you like or dislike the fight, it's undeniable that Gege managed to craft something truly special, and here's why I think it's so good. From their very first encounter, Gojo vs Sukuna was fated to happen, with Gojo styling on him in chapter 2, to Sukuna's taunts a handful of pages later, and their shared bullying of Jogo, the sentient JJK measuring stick. Gojo and Sukuna were so far above everyone else, it wasn't funny. In the Heian era, where Jujutsu was at its peak, Sukuna's strength ripped apart everything and everyone. While in the modern era, Gojo's very birth shifted the balance of the world entirely. Every single moment that Gojo was on screen, you and the rest of the cast could breathe a sigh of relief. Everything was going to be fine. As for the villains, every plan that they made required that Gojo and Gojo alone was not around or unable to help. As for Sukuna, he remained a ticking time bomb for both sides, a wild card that no one could control and had to tiptoe around. Yet, after their first scuffle, Sukuna and Gojo take turns showing off in the story, while also avoiding a second confrontation between each other. It's this constant back and forth that leaves us wanting this fight more and more and more. Speaking of Jogo real quick, we learned quite early on that Jogo is generously around 9-finger Sukuna level, so while the two don't fight just yet, after the embarrassment he receives at the hands of Gojo not once but twice, we're left to underestimate him. I mean, Hanami got bullied during Goodwill by Yuji and Todo, and now they just got splattered by Gojo 2 seconds ago. Surely Jogo isn't that much stronger. In one swift and effortless encounter, Jogo shows the difference between someone on his level compared to 99% of our heroes. But before he can finish off Naobito, Sukuna's presence engulfs all of Shibuya. Jogo vs Sukuna is a slaughter. We know that Jogo should only be a handful of fingers plus 1 off in power, yet it's not even close. Jogo doesn't land a single hit, and even his most powerful attack, barring his domain, is dodged with ease. What this fight shows us is that while Jogo is high above many, Sukuna exceeds all. The only one with any hope of defeating him at full power, well, it's gotta be Gojo. 131 chapters later, Gojo Satoru is finally freed from the prison realm. Just as Kenjaku won't stop doing what he loves, yapping, Gojo puts him in his place, almost ending his life, but not before Sukuna, in a fresh new host, puts a stop to it. He recalls his first threat to Gojo back in chapter 2, confident that he'll finish the job. Similarly, when asked whether he can actually win, Gojo responds with, no. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Check out this video for some context. Gojo instead echoes what he said to Yuji in that same chapter, he will win. When this chapter dropped, jaws were on the floor and the hype was unmatched. Gojo came back, Urame got fodderized after seeing their insane feats in Shibuya in the Culling Games, and just when it looks like Gojo is going to throw down with 16 fingers Sukuna, the fight is abruptly stopped by Kenjaku. Now, at this time, we expected to have to wait a while before we got to the meat and potatoes of it all, but Gege said, fuck that, skipped not only the training arc, but basically every single major character interaction that we were fiending for. No Gojo humbling Kashimo, no Gojo reacting to Nanami's death, and most importantly, no Gojo time with the new students like Kirara and Hakari. Talking about Gojo vs Sukuna and not mentioning Leak Night is like making Dragon Ball videos and only ever talking about who Goku can and can't beat up. Whether you like it or not, Leak Night was a big proponent of JJK's ginormous popularity online. You just had to be there. The anime running week to week as Gojo vs Sukuna was taking place, memes being created after every new page would get leaked, and the Gojo vs Sukuna sides battling it out in the slander war created something truly unique to JJK and JJK only. While I do think a similar effect would have been achieved just on Sundays when the official chapter dropped anyway, there's a real impact that the illegal aspects of leaks had on it. Crusty pages being dropped with often terrible translation caused so much confusion and chaos, while the slow drip of panels was giving people heart attacks every 5 minutes. TikTok was booming, YouTube live streams were booming, Twitter was booming, you get the picture. I still hate leaks for the irreparable damage they've done to the reading comprehension of the fandom, on top of their straight up illegal nature, but I do miss them. Gojo vs Sukuna isn't just a fight between the two strongest. It isn't even a title match for the moniker. It's instead a battle of ideals and one of great importance to both fighters. For Gojo, it's a chance to put it all on the line, to finally face an opponent as strong as he is and live in a moment where he won't be alone as the strongest. While for Sukuna, the title means nothing. It's simply the best form of entertainment. A man that won't tremble at his presence, a man who can go toe to toe with him, and even maybe a man that could prove his life philosophy wrong. Hirozu's words hanging above him as Gojo approaches, and this is what I love about shonen. You can have some genuinely poetic shit happen against the backdrop of two dudes just beating the shit out of each other. It's pure cinema. Gojo vs Sukuna does not start out like a MMA or boxing match. It actually starts with both of them 4 kilometers away and a sneak attack by Gojo, the opening move to decide the challenger, a 200% output holo purple. What I love about JJK is that there is no fairness in battle. It's actually a very known and accepted aspect of its world that no characters ever question. This sneak attack isn't meant to be a winning opening move. It's a message, a provocation even. He who bears the title of strongest in history shouldn't be bitch-made enough to die against something like this. It's why I think Kashima was okay with jumping either Gojo or Sukuna immediately after either of them won, regardless of their states. Being the strongest doesn't mean you get to just go 1v1v1v1, it's being able to overcome any and all challenges in the face of death. Regardless, Sukuna is still standing, his hand blown off from the blast, but nothing that a little RCT and flex tape can't fix. The strongest in history versus the strongest of today finally begins. Chapter 224 is when the one-on-one fight truly starts. Sukuna is happy to let Gojo know that he will gut him like a fish, while Gojo reveals that he's done some special training that allows him to wail on Meguna all he wants. The two stance up, very reminiscent of Dragon Ball, which I love, and the warm-up part of the fight commences. Sukuna lunges first with a kick, but Gojo blocks it, throwing out a counterpunch that Sukuna parries. He tries to copy our glorious blue-eyed king, but Gojo's one step ahead, sliding underneath Sukuna and sending him flying with blue, much to Sukuna's amusement? The sarcastic wows are quickly silenced as Gojo stomps his way towards Sukuna, amplifying each step with blue, his feet basically turning into hydraulic presses. Sukuna starts rolling like it's Dark Souls, but unfortunately for him, he's still playing Dark Souls 2 and gets caught mid-roll somehow. Guess he didn't level ADP enough. Gojo picks up a portion of the bridge Sukuna is rolling over and launches both at a nearby building. Sukuna gets his iframes again and zips out just in time, intercepting Gojo's path and sending out a dismantle, but not directly aimed at Gojo. The building behind Gojo is cut in two, and as the top comes tumbling towards him, Sukuna leaps at Gojo, trying to disable his infinity with domain amplification. The two take a detour through the building as Gojo uses a door to, I guess, block out Sukuna's line of sight so that he can't see Gojo stealing Gon's entire flow. Seriously though, I love all the Togashi references that Gege does, all throughout JJK. The building, with the two of them still inside, smashes into the ground, and from the smoke and debris, the two emerge, taking small verbal jabs at each other as if they weren't mortal enemies. I do actually really like moments like this between the two of them. I think it shows a level of respect that they have for each other's strength that goes beyond anything else. Sure, Sukuna killed thousands in Shibuya, traumatized Yuji, bit off Angel's arm, took over Megumi's body and killed his sister in it, but hey, he's cool and strong, okay, and he's kind of like my best friend. Chapter 225. The previous chapter was all action, barely any words. Conversely, this one is more words, less action. I remember me and a bunch of others not being fans of this chapter as it was leaking during leak night, but as I've been rereading for the video, I actually like it. It helps that the translations this time around are actually good, and I'm not relying on Miyamura's dad's uncle's third cousin's dog's boyfriend for the translation, I guess. The majority of the chapter focuses on the peanut gallery, mainly Kusakabe, going over some key aspects of the fight, specifically domain clashes. Should Sukuna and Gojo clash their domains, what would even happen? It's fun and interesting to see everyone theorize about what could happen, only for their conversation to be cut short by Gojo and Sukuna actually opening their domains against each other, giving us the first of many clashes, and definitely the one that caused the most heart attacks. As Gojo's barrier encloses the two of them away from prying eyes, we get one of my favorite double-page spreads, which, spoilers, will go down in ranking like 7 times in the span of the next 10 chapters. Sukuna standing atop his shrine, looking down on Gojo. Keep in mind, every other time that Sukuna has popped his domain, the shrine has kind of just spawned right behind him, which means that Sukuna specifically had it spawn underneath him this time around, all so that he could look down on Gojo. Narratively, it's meant to show us that Sukuna's domain is above Gojo's, which we very quickly see as the slashes on the outside destroy the domain, leaving Gojo entirely defenseless and giving him the first of many cuts. Gege, did you really have to place it on the neck? Are you fucking insane? I had to deal with a week of people somehow convinced it's Gojo over, even though it hadn't even been 2 chapters. What is wrong with you? Chapter 226. As Gojo heals his first cut, a torrent of slashes follow, tearing Gojo apart. But in the maelstrom of it all, blood pouring and chunks of his body being torn apart, all the while Sukuna laughs atop his throne, Gojo smiles. When it comes to techniques, Gojo's is far superior. And if you were wondering, yeah, this panel just kind of overtook the last one. I mean, look just how goddamn cool this double page is, man. Gojo tries to run out of its range, but Sukuna's right there with him. He stops Gojo over and over, intending to keep the pressure on him. It doesn't matter that he can hold his own in the hand-to-hand, the damage is accumulating fast and both of them know it. The peanut gallery is worried, but just then, new shadow style, simple domain. A technique created to protect the weak, now is being used by the strongest of the modern era. The brief protection from the slashes gives Gojo enough time to heal his wounds, but the effect doesn't last long. He has to buy more time, so he casts it once again. This time, however, he doesn't heal himself. Gojo takes the fight to Sukuna, but the simple domain shatters. The narrator asks, is Gojo Satoru about to lose? The worried and shocked faces of all of his students and friends cap off the page, and on the turn, Gojo latches onto Sukuna, surprising not only him, but Yuta as well as he fires off one of the most satisfying reversal reds straight into another, one of the coolest double page spreads in the manga. Put that right up there. Sukuna is propelled right into his shrine, half of his face singed off as he smiles. Likely, for the first time ever, not only had someone survived within the heart of his domain, but even gotten one over on him. Gojo triumphantly stands up tall, healing his wounds with a smile, finally being the one to look down on Sukuna. This was such an exciting chapter and truly highlights what makes Jujutsu Kaisen fights special compared to a lot of other series. Gege had done such a great job with their power system. Every push and pull in this first domain battle is perfect. The domains are evenly matched, but Sukuna's is an open barrier that allows his sure hit to attack Gojo's from the outside. Logical, makes sense. The slashes themselves are strong, but they can be healed despite the burnout. Running is not an option, so simple domain makes its appearance, but as we've seen with Yuki, it's not enough even at the hands of the strongest, and when that fails, Gojo still finds a way to come out on top. This was incredibly, and I mean incredibly hype at the time, and on every single reread without fail, it is fucking gas. Gojo being drenched in blood with no curse energy, yet he still smiles through it all, sure that he'll find a way to win. Chapter 227. Okay, this one technically isn't a double page spread of the fight, it's like a colored page with the Jump magazine for that week or whatever, but it looks sick so we're sliding it up right there. The Peanut Gallery is back for a short while to try and backseat game Gojo. Thankfully though, he drowns out their voices by enclosing the barrier and we're once again left with just the two of them. This decision by Gojo to get right back to a domain battle is one I sometimes still see a lot of confusion about, and I never kinda got it. One thing Gojo tells Megumi early on is that winning by dying and dying to win are two completely different things. That Jujutsu sorcerers need to be selfish in order to win, and that when push comes to shove, those that swing for the fences are the last ones standing. Like Yuji, like Gojo. Engaging Sukuna in a battle of domains isn't ego or desperation on Gojo's part, what he sees is a path forward, a path to victory. The second go in the domain starts out strong. Having exchanged the durability of his domain's interior for a stronger exterior, Gojo can fight Sukuna with his technique fully intact, giving him a massive advantage as Sukuna's slashes can't hit Gojo due to infinity. The King of Curses, however, is able to use domain amplification at the same time as his domain expansion. However that works, bringing the fight to close quarters, only for Gojo to win out in the exchange, right up until Sukuna grabs onto him, gives up the sure hit, risking a loss to Unlimited Void, but he strengthens the slashes on the outside, causing Gojo's barrier to break once again. This time around, instead of simple domain though, Gojo uses Falling Blossom Emotion. Lessening the damage of the slash is enough for him to once again regain his curse technique, and for the third time, open his domain. This time, the barrier engulfs the entire effective range of Sukuna's shrine, but as cracks start to form, the domain compresses further and further, reaching a size no bigger than a basketball. This fight is described by the narrator as a battle that breaks all the rules of Jujutsu. In a way, it's kinda used to handwave anything that Gojo and Sukuna do that others can't, as they're just them, so don't question it, but funnily enough, I think it follows the rules quite nicely, and once again shows the genius in Gege's designs. For Gojo, it's a natural progression. The normal domain doesn't work because the outside is weak, flip the conditions. Sukuna accounts for that by using the one weakness of your domain, make the barrier bigger. The shell can't hold together and cracks, compress it. It's such a nice back and forth problem solving approach that I think is pretty unique to JJK and Hunter x Hunter because Gege kinda yoinked that shit, let's be real. Chapter 228. Hey, the Peanut Gallery is back again, now going over all the different explanations as to why what Gojo is doing right now is near impossible. Basically, because he was in the prison realm, he used that experience to guide himself into creating a domain with big interior but small exterior. This strategy is paying off as the domain holds out despite the relentless onslaught of slashes cutting away at it, but once the first cracks form, the entire barrier shatters. Gojo's eyes don't give off a confused nor shocked look like before though. Rather, they're inquisitive. Sukuna is still standing, but the shrine behind him begins crumbling. Gojo had done enough damage to Sukuna during their fight inside, causing both domains to shatter simultaneously. The gallery erupts in excitement, but an air of worry creeps in. Gojo may have gained an advantage momentarily, but he's also shown Sukuna his hand. Now that he's seen Gojo heal his burned out curse technique, he too can do it. Sukuna dives away under the bridge with Gojo right under it, pulling out chunks of the bridge from underneath with his blue. He's keeping up the pressure, but something's wrong. Not only is Sukuna smiling all throughout the chapter, but he's also been rather reserved. He has Megumi's curse technique on top of his own, so where's the divine dogs, rabbits, or even Mahoraga? Why allow Gojo to have such an advantage and choose to only fight using application? As Gojo processes all of the possibilities, his nose starts to bleed. This is what I would like to call Gojo over 2.0. I think it was here where people started doom posting and the Sukuna Glazers got the upper hand in the betting markets. Personally, I think it's really cool and unsettling. Gojo has just gotten another small W over Sukuna, but it's short-lived. His eerie smile gives the whole game away because he knows something that Gojo doesn't. Chapter 229. Oh yeah, that nosebleed that a ton of people were freaking out over? Yeah, Gojo just wipes it off and opens up another domain. If I remember correctly, a lot of people were getting kind of annoyed at this point with the domain spam, but personally, I think it's like one of the coolest aspects of the fight, especially on a reread where I don't have to wait a week to see what happens next. From the very beginning, we've been told that domains are the pinnacle of sorcery, but we've rarely actually seen domains kill someone, and never have we seen two people have a balanced battle within their clashing domains. Seeing the two strongest fight using that pinnacle of sorcery and all the bullshit that Gojo has to do just to keep up and surpass Sukuna is what makes this portion of the fight so amazing to me. This domain around, we get a preview that shows just what Gojo is doing in order to destroy Sukuna's domain. While Sukuna plays it slow, focusing on defense, Gojo is all out. He uses blue to push and pull Sukuna around and finishes it all off with red to deal enough damage. Both domains shatter once more, but with Gojo having sustained no real damage, he recovers his curse technique and casts his domain less than 1.01 seconds faster than Sukuna. Fun little detail, if you look at the text of the two saying domain expansion, you can see that it's two instances with one of them overlapping the other, showing that Gojo was that tiny bit faster. If I had to guess, 8 years from now when this gets animated, Gojo's voice actor is going to read out his line a tiny bit before Sukuna's. Neat. Anyway, this ends up with Sukuna getting hit by Unlimited Void, and even though it was less than 0.01 seconds, the effects are noticeable enough that Gojo can deal more damage to Sukuna in less time than normal. After 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Sukuna is hit with the full brunt of Unlimited Void as the shrine collapses behind him. Gojo crushes Sukuna's heart, but before he can get anything else, Mahoraga is summoned, shattering not only the balance of the battle, but the domain as well. Somehow, someway, it had already adapted to Unlimited Void. Now, this chapter has got to be the single funniest one in all of JJK. Not because the chapter itself was funny, but because it spawned this meme that has lived rent-free in my head since then. I think I pinpoint this as the start of the fraud memes proper. While I think they were happening here and there, Sukuna making a 1v1, a 2v1 where it just so happens to get him out of the worst situation possible, I can see why the allegations became a thing right about here. Personally, Mahoraga was always going to find a way to break the balance, so I don't have any issue there. We saw Sukuna adapt Mahoraga to Yorozu's curse technique without summoning him before, so none of this is new or unexpected. The idea that Sukuna is a fraud for using Mahoraga is silly, because, as I've said, there is no fairness in a battle of Jujutsu. At the end of the day, the last one standing is the winner. Chapter 230. The Mahoraga is out the bag, and he's right back in it. Basically, Mahoraga's wheel was put on Megumi's soul, meaning that each time Gojo's sure hit was active, Megumi was getting brain blasted instead of Sukuna. Mahoraga got to adapt, Megumi became a vegetable, and all is good in the world. Gojo is naturally not very happy, barely able to keep up his normally chill demeanor. He's so angry in fact that he's gonna show Sukuna just who's boss and open his domain one more time. Okay, so Gojo can't domain anymore. I think when this panel leaked, Gojo over 3.0 started. The fight had been going on for a long enough time, and we'd already seen the peak of sorcery like 5 times, so having Gojo lose now or the next chapter felt plausible. It's then explained by Sukuna that what Gojo was doing was basically lobotomizing himself and then healing the damage each time he recovered his curse technique. This should go without saying, but don't lobotomize yourself. Now on his knees, Sukuna prepares his own domain. Having not lobotomized himself nearly as often, his domain is actually totally fine and is really Gojover. Limited Void and Malfunctioning Shrine are officially out of use, and we can let our 2 brain-dead contestants fight it out like real men that level strength and only use Big Sword. Unga Bunga wins again. While I do mostly joke about Gojover, I think Gege did a really good job with a fake out here. Gojo looks genuinely defeated, and while we can't see his eyes to say for sure, we can infer. Prior to this moment, Gojo had used everything. Red, blue, purple, domain, big domain, small domain, and even Unlimited Void had hit, yet it all seemingly wasn't enough. That moment when Shrine collapses again, and Gojo lets out that laugh, saying that he's not done showing off because his students are watching. Right before punching Sukuna square in the jaws, Yorozu's words about love kept off the final double-page spread of round 1. Chills. Gojo's voice actor did, funnily enough, do a voiceover for this scene that I want you to have a listen to. It's pretty sick and just gets me so excited for this fight being animated in a million years from now.
しっかり聞いてるじゃねえか。生徒が見てるんでね。まだまだかっこつけさせてもらうよ。
Chapter 231. Now that the domains are out of the picture, Gojo starts absolutely thrashing Sukuna. If it was Gojo over last week, now we've moved back to maximum faith in Gojo. This section of the fight is definitely much more grounded. While they're still using Jujutsu, it's much closer to chapter 224. Also, Gojo whips out the rhythm echo, and to this day I have no idea why Gege had Gojo do this, but it was wicked, so I'm just gonna gloss over it real quick. Just like Sukuna does when he figures out which one is a real Gojo and sends him packing and the wheel on his head spins. Oh yeah, now that Mahoraga is adapted to Unlimited Void, Sukuna wants it to adapt to the physical abilities like Red, Blue, and the neutral Limitless. Gojo somehow even knows just how many more spins it'll take, it's 3, and Sukuna taunts him, but the two of them are genuinely happy. I'm sure this fight will have a joyful ending. Chapter 232. Maharaga's second wheel spin happens off screen, and the third only a couple pages later. Gojo is relentless in his pressure, but the limitation of only using blue is becoming apparent. Sukuna is taking damage, but the output of blue is relatively low to red or purple. Sukuna is launched straight into a building, with Gojo falling right behind him, murder of Mei's crows. Big up to the crows, by the way, they've had their eyes on this fight like a R praise the cameraman post the entire time. 5 Reddit golds for that one, we did at Reddit. Believing that he's convinced Sukuna enough, Gojo ducks behind cover and charges up his red. Sukuna turns the corner, but he's read Gojo's move. He's able to activate amplification in time, considerably lowering the damage of red. Sukuna takes the moment to taunt Gojo, only for that red to take a lap around the building and give Sukuna a backshot so strong, it's got him spitting out and floating in the air in prime position for Gojo to hit him with a black flash so nasty, his eyes roll back into his head. The reaction from the peanut gallery is quite literally every single reader up on leak night. For me, leaks were at like 5 in the morning, so you already know I was up and jumping around as quietly as I could, only to see fucking Mahoraga pop out of the shadow and deliver us Gojover 4.0. Chapter 233. Every Gojover up until this point has upped the overness meter, but this one felt like it was it. Not only had Gojo's output lowered, Mahoraga had also adapted to his infinity. From here on out, it was only a matter of time. Even in Gojo's mind, the possibility of defeat is very real. He thinks back to the last time he felt like this, Toji. But just as the signs of defeat begin to show, Gojo locks the fuck in and delivers the most generational one-man performance I have ever seen in Shonen. Gojo punches the shit out of Mahoraga twice in the face and palm strikes him right in the stomach, causing Big Raga to keel over temporarily. Just enough time for Gojo to start chanting, strengthening his red enough to take him out. Sukuna, finally up from his nappy nap, saves his father's life using Rabbit Escape. Gojo shoots his red directly into the puddle, breaking the floor and chasing after the two of them. Sukuna does everything in his power just to not fight Gojo directly. Fucker even throws a fire extinguisher at him, and when that's not enough to put Gojo out, he spits water at him at the same time as Mahoraga attacks, allowing for Sukuna to finally land a hit on Gojo directly. I like that Sukuna does the piercing blood pose here. It shows just how much of a jujutsu genius he is. Not only did he learn from seeing Eugene fight Choso, but he actively found a way to incorporate that same principle behind Choso's move to the 10 shadows. The 2-on-1 is hard on Gojo, but it's not quite enough. Sukuna calls out his mommy and it turns into a 3-on-1. Gege, I want to pull the mic over real quick. Why did you give Agito a giant rack? What is wrong with you? Big Raga and Sukuna attack Gojo together. Meanwhile, Agito kind of just sits there and goes bzz bzz or something. Despite the narrow corridor and attacks coming from quite literally every single angle, Gojo is able to weave around them and get off a red on Mahoraga, but the damage is minimal. If he's ever to destroy Mahoraga, he's gonna have to use the Pronoun game to win. Chapter 234. Gojo continues his all-star performance, barely slowing down. Agito and Raga chase after him, but neither are quick enough to land a hit. Gojo on the other hand drops one more black flash straight into Agito, blowing a hole through its stomach, one that it heals instantly. Mahoraga takes a swing at Gojo, but it's just too easy for him. Not only does he lay Mahoraga out flat with one kick, Gojo even stops Agito's bzz bzz for a second time, freeze opposing right in front of Agito to assert dominance. Meanwhile, in Sukuna land, he bides his time, and since he's a spoiled youngest child, he yells at his father to do something, and Papa obliges. Gojo's eyes are wide open. He's taken damage before during the fight, but this was different. Mahoraga just launched something at him, something that got past infinity. The shock is too much, too quick. Sukuna, Papa, and Mom would all jump Gojo together, but the family time is short-lived. While Agito is annoying and can withstand a beating, even a blue is enough to take them out. Papa shields his son from the big scary blue orb as Mama is sent far up into the sky, never to be seen again. The Mahoraga and Agito being Sukuna's parents bit is like a meme that became uber popular during this time. You gotta keep in mind that we went from Gojo versus Sukuna to Sukuna using Mahoraga to save himself from Unlimited Void, and that was like kind of acceptable, to now Mahoraga and another shadow jumping Gojo. I think you can see why. And not only were they jumping him, Gojo was still coming out on top. And if you are a Gojo fan, by the way, reading chapter 234 and 235 week to week, that is probably in your top 2 fondest memories, with like a gap so big between anything else that you can see it from space. If I had a kid, I think their birth might rank number 4, to be honest. Chapter 235. Agito is out. Gojo has landed his second Black Flash, the Pope is still alive, and Sukuna is shitting himself. Another Black Flash. Sukuna goes for a punch, but Gojo is on a different plane entirely. He effortlessly parries and sends Sukuna back towards Mahoraga. The fourth Black Flash is blocked, and both are pushed back. giving Gojo the most important thing: distance. This next sequence is probably the most nerve-wracking moment in Jujutsu Kaisen, period. Gojo begins chanting for red. Sukuna realizes this and plans to have Mahoraga take it and adapt to red entirely. However, Gojo swings his arm up, looking straight into Sukuna's eyes. Sukuna realizes, screaming out to Mahoraga. The red is propelled high up into the air. The blue that Gojo had used to kill Agito never actually faded away. It stayed up there waiting for this moment. Once that red collides with blue, purple would detonate. Mahoraga charges after the red with Gojo in pursuit. He uses the blue to close the distance between the two of them, and since Mahoraga had adapted to blue earlier, he remained unaffected by the pull of blue. Gojo intercepts Mahoraga, sending him crashing down. Out of nowhere, Sukuna jumps out, firing his piercing water at the red, hoping to explode it right before it reaches blue. The water zips past Gojo. Too slow, Sukuna taunts. Phase. Twilight. Eyes of Prajna. In that compressed moment in time, Gojo is able to strengthen the output of blue just enough for it to pull the water away from red. Sukuna is left stunned and out of options. Mahoraga can't make it in time either. As the red meets blue, Gojo utters the chant for Hollow Purple. Looking down on both Sukuna and Mahoraga, the purple detonates and all three of them are engulfed in light as the explosion levels the city and completely incinerates Mahoraga, wheel and all. In the aftermath, Sukuna is still standing, half of his face blown off with his left hand missing as well. He can barely hold himself up. All the while, Gojo confidently shows up in front of him. His injury is minimal by comparison. Sukuna has lost, and Gojo is the winner. And we all lived happily ever after. The next chapter has an epilogue, and this video is over. Bye bye, thanks for watching. Emotional whiplash happens when your feelings change quickly and unexpectedly, similar to how your neck might snap back and forth in a car accident. One moment, you might feel happy and excited, the next, you're sad or angry. These rapid shifts can be confusing and exhausting. Going from that unreal performance by Gojo, to Kusakabe saying that he won, to a 1 week break, to seeing Gojo in his hidden inventory outfit looking up at Geto, I don't even know where to begin. To call 236 polarizing is the understatement of the century. This chapter was so incredibly overwhelming, our leaker-in-chief, no not Pete Hegseth, Miyamura had to take a mid-chapter break to process what just happened. And you know what? Yeah, it was mental. Reading that chapter and seeing those pictures at 5 or 6 in the morning felt surreal. A teacher figure losing or even dying is something so common in Shonen that people had predicted Gojo's defeat for ages now. That was sort of the most expected outcome. But seeing this double page spread was still shocking. And then off-screen them straight into Dreamland is nasty work. And Gege has nothing but my respect, bro. I don't know if I could do that. When JJK was still going on, I think this chapter was one that I thought was fine. The off-screening is shocking, but it fits the narrative. He got hit by an attack he couldn't see or an attack that he didn't expect. The airport scene though, it's not until now that I fully kind of thought it through and, let it sit. It's kind of pretty good actually. After 11 chapters of basically non-stop battle, it's a moment of rest. Despite telling his students that when you die alone, Geto is here. In a quiet airport where Gojo can tell him all about his final moment and encounter with the King of Curses. Gojo thought he understood Sukuna. To be the strongest means to be alone. By giving it his all to Sukuna, he had hoped to show him that he understands him, that he knows what Sukuna has gone through his entire life. It wasn't a way to talk no jutsu him or anything, rather just a way for Gojo to say, I see you, as a sign of camaraderie. In the end, however, Sukuna didn't get to give it his all. Gojo, on the other hand, had his fun, and now it's up to his students to finish the job. My biggest issue with this scene had always been the sort of lack of acknowledgement from Gojo about his students. The most he says is that he won't get the chance to tell Megumi about his dad, but that Shoko will manage. This implies that he has full trust in his students to not only beat Sukuna, but also to save Megumi. This is fully in line with his character from as early as Goodwill and JJK Zero really, but I've always wished that Gege had spent at least a page or two where Gojo could more explicitly say that. I remember also kind of being mad at Nanami for a bit for being all like, you don't care about others. Like, bitch, that's literally his whole character arc. You were still alive for it, by the way. But what I think Nanami is referring to here is more specifically when it comes to Jujutsu rather than Gojo himself. And there's actually truth to that. Whenever it's time for Gojo to let loose, he is in that moment purely thinking for himself. The high of getting to fully stretch out his arms like against Toji or during Goodwill or now against Sukuna, when it comes to sorcery itself, Gojo is and has always been looking for that satisfaction, and Sukuna did give it to him. It doesn't mean that he hates his students or other people, it's just that when it comes to sorcery and when it comes to battle, he's the most like Sukuna outside everyone else other than Kashimo. Only difference between the two is that Gojo doesn't fight alone. He started off the fight by having Ichiji Utahime Engaku Ganji help out, and throughout all of his adult life, he's been on the lookout to foster the next generation of sorcerers that can stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Sukuna doesn't care for any of that. He's gone through all of his life basically alone, with his right-hand man/woman just being his living refrigerator, and that's what Gojo pities about him. Even in his final moments in the airport, Gojo isn't alone. The airport and everyone in it is an important and deliberate choice by Gege. This is the time that Gojo was happiest and the time Gojo cherished the most. It's why he's in his old look. Why Geto, Riko, Kuro, Nanami, Haibara, Yaga, and even Toji are there. Hidden Inventory was a very important arc and an even more important time in Gojo's life. His friendship with Geto shaped Gojo into a more caring and less selfish person. Riko's death broke Gojo, but also lit a fire in him to create a world where kids like her can live out the best time of their youth fully. And finally, his defeat at Toji's hands is the event that turned Gojo into the strongest and a symbol of hope and assurance to those around him. Nanami tells Gojo about going north versus going south, and while we never get to see Gojo's choice, seeing everyone there happy and smiling, including Gojo, tells me that whatever the choice, Gojo went out satisfied. A beautiful send-off to the most beloved character in the series is met with a haunting double-page spread of Gojo's final moments. Snow falling as his top half is laid out on the ground. I even bought this volume. Why the fuck did I do that? Needless to say, this is hard to look at. Jujutsu Kaisen has never shied away from violence, even when it's done to its heroes, but it's one thing seeing Hanami get splattered on a wall versus seeing Gojo get turned into an Among Us death animation. Sukuna spends his last few moments monologuing about how he managed to win. However, it's in his final words to Gojo that I think make the chapter. "You are magnificent, Satoru Gojo." One thing about Sukuna is that he gives nicknames to practically everyone around him. Brat, possessed boy, death painting, whatever. It's not until someone actually does something worthy of his respect that he calls them by their name. So for him to acknowledge Gojo in this moment, right after his doubts about not having reached Sukuna, I think it adds much depth to Sukuna's character, and just makes Gojo happy as well. At the start of the fight, he acknowledged Gojo as strong and called him by his name. When he thought that Gojo would fail to measure up to his expectations after his brain got fried, he called him a commoner. However, now that Gojo had pushed him to the limit, Sukuna finally says his name fully. And if you look at the raw Japanese text, it's basically an idiom that literally means, "You've cleared my skies." Essentially, it's just a really high form of praise from Sukuna, praise truly befitting the one and only Satoru Gojo. And with that, the greatest shonen fight of the modern era comes to a close. I fully expect a bunch of disagreements in the comments, but if MAPPA delivers on this fight 8 years from now, 20 years from then, you all, yes you, are going to come back to this video and you're going to comment, "Damn, you kinda cooked here, Unk." If you like JJK, check out my other JJK videos. I made a ton of them. This one is a good start. Thank you for making it all this way. See you all next time.